What is up? I'm gonna show you guys something important. The questions that I get asked all the time is what is a good ROI for an e-commerce site? Mostly Amazon. People want to know when I'm selling on Amazon, what is a good ROI? And it's really one of the most important questions, that you have to answer for your business, because if your ROIs aren't good, I mean, you're not gonna be maximizing your profit. So that's the goal, right? So when we talk about ROI, the biggest thing, it doesn't matter what the ROI is. The ROI could be 1%, it could be 1,000,000%. The biggest thing is net profit, right? This is what actually matters. Everything that we do comes back to net profit and maximizing net profit. It doesn't matter if we maximize our net profit with, like I said, 1% ROI or whatever, in some infinite number of ROI. The goal is to maximize our net profit, right? But there's a couple of variables, more than a couple of variables, that go into maximizing our net profit. I'm gonna go through them. First, we have the biggest one, capital. If you have more capital, so then let's say the amount, I can't spell. You know when you type, you get so used to typing online that you almost forget how to spell in real life, and when you don't have spell check, you're just screwed. So we're gonna do the amount, which would be low or high, and then we're gonna do ROI. So this is going to dictate what type of ROI you're gonna look for. So let's say that you have a lot of capital, right? If you have a lot of capital, that can mean you can take a lower ROI. Why is that? It's because when you have a lot of capital, you have to make a lot of buys. The goal is you want to always be reinvesting your inventory or your capital. You don't want your capital to be sitting, right? You don't want it to be just not gaining interest, not making a profit. You want your capital to always be working for you in some way. So the goal is to make as much of your capital, turning it into inventory that can then be flipped, right? For a profit. So if you have, let's say you have $1 million in spending capital, which I know most of you don't. Let's say you have $2,000 in spending capital, and only 1,000 of it is spent every month, and the other 1,000 is just sitting in a checking or savings account, not doing anything. That's not ideal. But a lot of people, they're thinking like, well, I have $2,000 in capital, but that I can invest in inventory. But the problem is that I can't find $2,000 worth of leads that are 50% ROI. So what do? You have to accept that you're going to buy stuff with a lower ROI because the capital needs to be spent. So let's say that you can get, $1,000 at 50% ROI. That's great, but then you have $2,000 total, right? Like I said, 2,000 total, and you can spend 1,000 of it at 50% ROI. Like let's say your goal was to have 50% ROI. You've got that, but then you have an extra $1,000 that is making 0%, or maybe whatever your checking account pays you is like 1%. That sucks. So what we need to do is you can maybe get, the problem might be that you just can't find enough products. I mean, realistically, you should be able to find $2,000 worth of buys at 50%. But let's say that you're new and you can't. Whatever your e-commerce business is, if it's Amazon, let's say that you're not using something like tactical arbitrage, and you're having a hard time finding that. So then you might have to come down and say, all right, so I'll spend the rest of the 1,000 I can get, and this is really oversimplifying, so I can get that at 20%. You can't find another $1,000 at 50%, but you could find another 20,000 or another 1,000 at 20%, right? So now we're making $200 here and $500 here. So we're actually making $700, and because we're moving our capital, right? Everything's moving. And before we weren't making this. we were just making this, right? So the answer isn't, that's why there's no real cut answer as to, yeah, a good ROI is 50%, a good ROI is, 20%, or a good ROI should always make $5 per hour. It doesn't work like that. A good ROI is specific to your business. So let's get back to the different things that go in to factoring what your ROI is. All right, so you got capital, and then you've got opportunity. This means your access, the availability of leads, right, of products. So you might have a lot of suppliers. That means that you can find products easily that have pretty good margins, right? So if you have a lot of opportunity, then you can look for a higher ROI because you have more products to choose from, right? If you have a lower opportunity, like you don't have as many products, you're not as talented at finding leads, or you don't have as many connections yet, then you might need to take a lower ROI because you're going to need to spend more on the few products that you can find. Because remember, the goal is to constantly be spending and reinvesting that capital, because the goal at the end is maximizing the net. ROI does not matter. The only thing that matters is the net, right? So let's say that, and again, it comes back to capital. If your capital is low, then the ROI you need is got to be high, right? So let's say that you only have $100. If you have $100, you don't want to tie that up on 10% margins if you can find 300% margin, right? So the less capital you have, the more choosy you should be with whatever you're flipping. The more capital you have, you should just be trying to buy it, because it becomes kind of the curse of capital, where you need to lower your margins to be able to spend it all, because it's going to be hard for you to find, let's say you have $100,000 to spend every month, to find 100% margin products. It's not going to happen realistically. And so the biggest brands capitalize on something called economies of scale. So with economies of scale, basically you're able to beat your competitors for a number of reasons, because you can actually accept lower margins. So let's say that you buy a product and your customer or your competitor buys the same product, but you're able to sell it at 10% ROI because you have more capital than they do. For them, they're at this point where they need to maximize their ROI on everything that they get, and they can't go as low as you. So by doing that, you might end up taking lower margins, but you can sell way more in the end. And it comes back again to net profit. That's why companies like Walmart, they're able to destroy their competitors, even though they take tiny, tiny margins. And it's actually that is the exact reason why they're able to do that. And aside, Walmart, I could talk all day about Walmart. There's a lot of other things that are involved with why they're so successful, but it can really kind of be summarized with economies of scale. So let's get back to the different things we have here. We've also got time. So it could kind of go in with opportunity, but we've got time. How much time do you have? Is this a side hustle? Is this a full-time thing? How many employees do you have? Time is going to be working hours. So it can be working capital. It might be, let's say you have 40 employees, or guys, I know that a lot of you follow me are very small sellers, but maybe it's just you and you only have a couple $100. Some of you might be mega million sellers and you have full teams and you have brick and mortar businesses. This applies to everyone. Okay, so don't think that I'm not talking to you just because I say an example that's way bigger or way smaller than you. This is all fundamental economics that everyone should know, whether you sell $100 in stuff or $100 million in stuff. So time, if you have a lot of time, you should be able to take higher ROI because you have more time to find leads, right? If you have less time, then you're going to need to take lower ROIs because you're just not going to be able to find products. All right, the next thing is estimated sales velocity. One of the mistakes people make is when they tie themselves up to a product, to a set ROI, they end up lowering their standards for sales rank, right? So you have to have a combination of, so ROI doesn't matter. Like, let's say that I want to sell this eraser, but I'm only going to take 300% margins, right? So let's say that it takes, if I want to sell it for 300% margins, it's going to take me 3 months to sell it, right? And then my costs on it are, let's say, $2. This is a really crazy example, or crazy low example. But if I decide that I can take 100% margins, I might be able, or 100% margin, solid. It might sell once a week. I mean, it does make a big difference in price like that, right? And every product is different, and the demand for everything is going to be different. But with this, I'm able to turn this 12 times. It's 4 weeks a month. I'm able to turn this 12 times. So I'm getting 12 times 100% ROI versus 1 at 300%. I'm going to make a lot more. Does anybody want 2 dogs? Because I have 2 dogs I need to kill. Hey, shut up! Get out of here! My God, I'm a cat person. Why do I have dogs? I have 2 dogs, 2 cats. Wish I had 4 cats. All right. So that is pretty much it. So as far as sales velocity goes, if you have a high sales velocity, you can take a lower ROI, right? Because if it's turning more, and again, these are generalizations. When you have a high sales velocity, things are turning, you can get your capital back. The worst thing that you can, the worst thing you can do is tie up capital into ROI, into products that aren't turning. You want to make sure that your products are turning, and that's why a lot of sellers who sell things that are in like the top 1%, the top 0.1% of products are taking really low margins because they're selling so much of them. They're continually reinvesting their capital and they're turning it over and over and over again. So you have to balance ROI with sales velocity, and again, it comes all back to net profit. So all of this considered, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different factors, and there's others that we could get into as well. Like things like, are you planning on selling your business eventually, or what have you? There's other factors, but these are the 4 most simple elements of selling anything, and what ROI you should take. And it's a combination of all of these, right? Because you have to have all 4 of these, right? And you have to weigh them together, right? So you might have a ton of capital, a lot of opportunity, and you can accept, you can buy products that, so if you have more opportunity, that means you can probably hold out for a higher sales velocity as well, right? If you have a ton of capital and a ton of time, you can end up holding out for higher ROIs, right? Because you want to, it balances, right? So you have to find that balance, and it all comes back to net profit, all right? So that is it, guys. That is my my whiteboard for the day. Hopefully that makes sense. I know some of this, I'll try to put this together into a blog post or something to make it a little bit more clear, but I really wanted to kind of work through it with you because I get asked this all the time. What's a good ROI? And the correct answer is there is not one correct ROI. It's the number that maximizes your net profit, and that is different for every business because of these factors that are not constant for everyone. They are changing for all businesses. Have different capital amounts. They have different opportunities. They have different amounts of time and labor. They have different. The products are going to have different sales velocities. All of that stuff goes into the ROI. That might be 10% for your business. It might be 100% for your business. Some of the biggest brands and biggest companies out there are taking very small margins. It's just part of what happens when you scale your business. You're going to need to take lower margins, even though you can negotiate deals where you're getting stuff, at bulk pricing. You will still end up needing to lower your expectations on ROI. But you can make up for that with capital, and oftentimes, you can get products that are harder to get and maybe flip a little bit faster. So that is it, guys. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. Peace.